What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Fish at the Moment. In this video, I'm going to share the 3 signs you need to be looking for on a fish finder to determine if a brush pile is holding quality bass. Let's get into it. The first giveaway that a brush pile is holding quality bass is that you have target separation between the brush and a dot or arch on the screen. While these dots and arches are pretty easy to see in open water, they're harder to see when they're actually right in the middle of a brush pile. That's why you want to set up your fish finder properly to have good target separation so that those dots and arches will be separated enough from the brush that you see on your downscan and 2D sonar view to actually pop out those fish. The way I normally do this is by lowering the sensitivity on both my downscan and 2D sonar view until I start seeing some brighter dots mixed in with the brush. What you'll find is that fish, especially bass, are going to look like little Christmas lights in the brush piles. These brighter dots mixed in with some of the more muted colors in the brush pile. In addition, I like to pull up this side-by-side view of 2D sonar and downscan when graphing brush piles because one of these views is usually going to show bass better than the other. For example, it's usually a lot easier to identify bass with downscan when the bass is further away from the brush pile. Downscan has great individual target separation with those small dots, and if the fish are set up 3 to 5 feet away from the brush, it's a lot of times easier to see those bass on downscan than it is on 2D sonar, though even in these images, the arches are pretty easy to see on 2D sonar as well. On the flip side, when bass are very close to a brush pile or in the middle of it, it's a little bit harder to see those dots because they will blend in with the branches of the brush. This is where 2D sonar comes in. The arches on 2D sonar a lot of times are going to pop a little bit better when you're actually looking at a brush pile when the bass are in the brush pile. It also helps to take the sensitivity down on your 2D sonar enough so that the branches of the brush pile become very fuzzy and they almost look like blue clouds, and then the bass are going to pop as these solid arches. Now, in addition to 2D sonar and downscan, you can also identify bass and brush piles using side scan. Most of the time, this is going to be best when the brush piles are on softer bottom because you'll be able to actually see the isolated dots sitting around the brush piles that are basically on soft bottom zones. When you have a really hard bottom area, and especially if you have a lot of rocks in the area, it's hard to differentiate the bass from the rocks on side scan. But if you have a soft bottom, silty or mud bottom area with a brush pile on it, you can oftentimes find those dots right next to the brush pile. Again, these are fish, they're not set up directly in the brush pile, they're more on the outside edges. So if the fish are deeper in that brush, I would recommend using 2D sonar to try to find those fish. The next giveaway that you're looking at bass in a brush pile is the size and color of the arches and dots you see around the brush. A lot of times you're going to have multiple species setting up around a brush pile. This can include bluegill, crappie, and catfish. And so if you aren't able to differentiate the species of fish with your fish finder, it's going to be hard to know which of the brush piles are holding bass versus other species, and also if there's a mix of species that includes bass. The way that I identify that the dots and arches I'm seeing on my screen are bass is actually by the size and color of the arches on 2D sonar. In this image, we can clearly see 2 defined dots on downscan, but I don't know if these are going to be bigger catfish, carp, drum, something like that. They could be anything. But by looking at the arches on my 2D sonar, I can clearly see that these are bass because the arches are not extremely long. They also have a good amount of width to them and have some color in the center. Most of the time when you're looking at catfish, gar, or drum, the arches are either going to be very long and thin or they're going to look kind of fuzzy. For example, if we take a look at this brush pile, you can see that on the downscan view there are a lot of dots, but some of those dots do not translate to arches on 2D sonar. That is because those are not large enough fish to actually show up using my 2D sonar settings. Again, I drop my settings on 2D sonar to the point where I filter out both some of the limbs of the brush pile, but also some of the smaller fish. So a lot of those dots that you see on downscan that don't have an arch related to them on the 2D sonar side are small enough fish that they aren't showing up. Those are probably smaller bait fish, crappie, or bluegill. In addition, you have some arches that are kind of fuzzy, especially that dot on the far left. That dot doesn't really have a defined center mass with good color to it. That is most likely a catfish or a drum. But there are a few bass that are setting up in this brush pile, and it looks like there's a mix of maybe crappie and other species in there. So I would still fish this brush pile because I can pick out a few of those bass, again, based on the size, the width, and the color of that arch. And by using that information, I can determine if I need to fish this brush pile and how many bass are there. Finding bass offshore with a fish finder can be a frustrating process, especially if you don't have the right settings on your fish finder. You could graph over a great school of fish, but with the wrong settings, you could completely miss it. That's why I created sonar settings guides and put them on my website, fishthemoment.com. These are the settings I've used on all the different fish finders I've had on my boat over the years. They're specifically tuned to find bass, and I give detailed step-by-step instructions on how to change every single setting you need to get the clearest possible image, so you don't waste time on the water with bad settings. Definitely check out my sonar settings guides at fishthemoment.com. The third giveaway that you have quality bass in a brush pile is that there's forage in the area. This forage could be shad, panfish, or crawfish. For example, in this last brush pile we looked at, we don't really see balls of shad or anything like that, but we do see a lot of these smaller dots on downscan that aren't showing up on 2D. Those are smaller fish that bass could feed on, probably some type of gizzard shad, maybe just regular shad, as well as bluegill and crappie. Bass will feed on all of those things, and so even though you don't have a ball of shad specifically in that image there's enough forage for those bass to feed on from those other species of fish. In this next example, we have another nice brush pile that's set up right on a drop-off that has some rock around it. In this image, we don't see, again, a lot of shad or anything in the area, but all of those rocks are likely to hold some type of crawfish in them. And those crawfish are going to be a meal that the bass want to feed on as well. So if I do find a really good looking brush pile with some dots in it that also has some rocky bottom, I know that those bass might be feeding more on crawfish if there's not panfish or shad in the area. In that case, I can throw a jig or a crawfish imitating bait to try to catch those fish. Now at the same time, you might graph over a brush pile like this with 2D sonar and see some bass around it, but also see some shad in the exact same depth of that brush pile. If you see bait balls in the same depth as the brush, as well as some fish around there, you're almost guaranteed that you're going to at least put your bait around a bass. They might not always bite, but you have a pretty good chance of catching one. And this is actually one of the main things I look for when I'm graphing for brush piles. Shad or bait balls in the same depth as the brush piles that I'm fishing. Finally, as we get later into the summer here, you may also find some spawning bluegill they're setting up around brush. Here's a nice bluegill bed that we can see on the side scan view of our fish finder, and then a little stump or log that's just next to it. This is the perfect spot to target fish in the summertime because those bass are going to be setting up around the different pieces of brush here, waiting to ambush those bluegill. And even if you can't see specifically dots or arches in the brush piles there because maybe there aren't that many fish there, I would still fish these brush piles just because you have that forage so close by. Now that I've explained how to determine if a brush pile is holding quality fish, let's head out to the lake and actually fish some of the brush piles I just showed you in these images and show you how I would approach them to catch bass around these brush piles.
There we go. Last one. Ooh, good fish here on the hover rig to start the morning. Graph these fish up. They are all over this spot right here. An absolute pile of them. That is a nice smallie to start the day. Hover rig with the hover tricks. Couldn't get him to eat anything that was falling really fast. That hover rig did the trick. These smallies out here on 10 killer love the hover rig. Oh, that's a nice fish right there, guys. Little hover rig, the Bass Tricks hover tricks on it, 1/8 ounce, 3/0 size. That's a beautiful smallie. Let's get a weight on them real quick. 3 pounds, 10 ounces, solid almost 3 3/4 pound smallie. Let's lock that guy in. There's so many of them down there, guys. I want to get back in there. Beautiful smallie right there. Let's get him back down in the lake. There we go, guys. Got that fish on an 1/8 ounce, 3/0 hover rig paired with that Bass Tricks hover tricks. It's a new collaboration between Core Tackle and Bass Tricks. And when I brought that last fish in, about 15 followed it back. So I know there's more in this area. I graphed a pile of them on 2D and side scan in this area,
And for some reason, these fish do not want to chase something that's moving really, really fast through the water, like a heavier jig head. They really only want to commit to this really light hover rig. And I've heard that a lot recently. This hover rig will get these fish to commit a little bit better than the standard minnow. And definitely is doing the trick right now. Just got to get around a few more, maybe see where that school pulled off to, because there was a bunch from there earlier. Oh, he was all over it. I didn't see him. Wasn't working it at all. Where is he? Come on. There's 2 or 3 of them on it. Come get it. Come get it. Come on. One of you come get it. Come on, come on, come on. Got him. There he is. Oh my gosh. Look at all these fish off of this drop, guys. There are so many of them down there. There's actually a largemouth right here. Nice little fish. On the hover rig again. It's actually a better fish than I thought. 2 species so far. Beautiful fish. Let's get a weight on them real quick. Just want to see what my best 5 are going to be off this spot. There's so many of them down here, guys. They are choking that hover rig. If you guys haven't tried the hover rig yet, I don't know why you wouldn't have, but if you haven't, you got to give it a try. Especially getting into March and April, they absolutely crush it. 2.5 pounder right there. Get back down there. Get another one. Let's see here. I think we should be able to get a good limit. We have a full moon, so I thought that this morning bite is going to be my best chance to really catch them. So I wanted to get out here early, and fortunately I found a group of them pretty fast out here, and there's fish just kind of roaming and swimming through this whole area, but it seems like I kind of just need to find a little wad to get them competitive so they'll actually eat. So let's see if we can locate another little group up here. Wow, look at all those fish right there, guys. There's an absolute pile of them on this little brush pile here. I marked these on 2D. They were all over this thing. Bunch of largemouth. Maybe some smallmouth. Let's see if any of them actually want to commit and eat my bait. One just smacked it right there. Come on. Smacked it again. Eat it, fish. Just come get it. There are 10 of you on it. Here he comes. Come eat it, eat it, eat it. Oh, he swerved it. Dang. He got all around it. He just didn't commit. Okay, here we go. Got a bunch of fish in a pile right here. Bunch of them. Let's see if any of them actually want to commit. I'm going to get that bait right over that pile and then just slowly twitch that thing over the top of it. Here he comes. Come on. Get it, fish. Get it. Get it. Get it. Get it. Get it. Got him. Oh, I had to work it a lot faster to get him to commit. This feels like a good one. He came up out of that pile. These fish are not super visible on the forward facing, really, until you drop that bait down there a lot of times, especially on these smallmouth fisheries for some reason, even though this is a largemouth right here. It's a good largemouth. And I don't know what the deal is, why these fish do that. It's a good fish right there, but I mean, all these fish I marked traditionally, and I just really like in this traditional fishing approach of graphing them first, then using the forward facing. It's a good blend for me, I feel like, and that hover rig with that hover tricks is getting them in the boat. It feels a lot less random than chasing around the schooling fish out in the middle, and you could do this technique here with even that like Eagle Eye $900 live sonar, and I don't know, I feel like it speeds up the process a little bit for me. It's a 3 pounder right there, solid fish. Speeds up the process of actually getting these fish in the boat, and I'm still finding them with traditional sonar, so I really do enjoy this right now. And a lot of times the hardest part of fishing is just finding them, and then getting them in the boat a lot of times isn't always the hardest part, though a lot of times it can be. One thing I have found though with these fish offshore here is that they're getting a lot more pressure than they ever have, and so just randomly blind casting with like a swim bait and things like that is not nearly as effective as it used to be on these spots. And so a lot of times you have to use these kind of obscure rigs like a hover rig, things like that, to get these fish to commit. And I don't know, seems like a pretty good process so far. Okay, we got a brush pile out here that is really covered up with stuff, and I have no idea what all these fish are. I don't think these are all bass. There's so many of them stacked up. I think a lot of them are crappie. I'm just wondering if there are maybe a couple bass in this deal. Maybe would be interested in eating my stuff. Oh, come on. That looked like it was a bass too. Why don't you come eat it? Come on. Got him. Are these bass or are these crappie? These are bass. I found the mother lode. Oh my gosh, these are bass. This pile is loaded. They look like bass on 2D. I didn't think they were going to be all bass though. This must have, brush pile must have 100 bass in it. This is wild. Look at that, guys. Beautiful fish. Hover rig, hover tricks. Let's get a weight on this guy. My goodness, there must be 100 bass in this brush pile. That's wild. Another solid 3.5 pounder right there. Beautiful fish on that hover tricks and the hover rig. Nice. Beautiful fish right there. Let's get back down the lake. Man, guys, we already have a 4 fish bag for 12 3/4 pounds. One more 3 pounder. We already have 15 pounds just to start the morning here. And it's pretty wild. Pretty good start to the day, all on that hover tricks and that hover rig. I threw several different baits before I picked this up, and they're just chewing this right now. There's a lot of fish in this brush pile. I've also been pretty happy with the fact that I've caught 4 fish on one of these baits, so they hold up pretty well. I'm a little bit too close to this pile now though, unfortunately. Kind of floated up on top of it, but let's see if we can get one more out of this deal. Okay, so I marked some fish here on this little drop off. Oh, he's coming up for my bait. You can see him. Oh, come on. Get it. There he is. Oh my gosh, I marked that fish on that drop off. I saw that one fish floating, but I haven't got a single floating fish to work. But those fish on that drop off down there, you can see, are sitting there, and I graphed those on 2D. And I got actually the trifecta now here. Oh no! Tried to flip them in. That was a spotted bass. That was the trifecta 3 species deal right there. That's cool. But basically there's a little drop off here, and I marked some fish. I got my waypoint right on that, and these fish are really a lot of times just so tight to the bottom you can barely see them. And I'm just dropping that bait down there. There's that floating fish. I have no idea what that is. I don't think that's a bass because it's just sitting there in the middle of the water column. My bait's going to fall right past its face and it's not going to do anything. But I'm not worried about those fish. I'm worried about the fish that are tighter down here to the bottom. And that fish came up off the bottom. I want to see if there's any more down there. This is kind of a strategy that I feel like is kind of untapped with guys who fish offshore with forward facing, because they focus so much on the fish that are visible to them and floating. You can see a fish popped up off that spot. And I know these fish are here because of 2D and traditional sonar. So it's kind of that blend of new school, old school. I'm just shaking my bait right where I know the fish are from traditional graphing. And that fish did not get in the boat, the last one, but it's not that big of a deal. It was just a little guy anyways, but I want to see if we can pull any more fish off this. Here's one right here. Come on. Come get it. Come get it. Come on. Come on, he's following it all the way. Just get it. Oh, he followed it all the way up and he didn't get it. You can see that fish came off the bottom, never saw him. And he's going straight back down to the bottom. If we follow that fish, you see he's going right back down, and now he's in those rocks and you can't see him. He's completely disappeared. And those are the fish I'm trying to kind of focus on right now. Those super tight to the bottom ones that I know are there from traditional graphing. It's pretty sweet. There's another one right here. Come on. Didn't see him at all because he was so tight to the bottom. Come on, come get it. Get it, get it, get it, get it. Get it. Get it. Ah, man. They're just not committing like I would want them to. But there's a bunch of fish right here just setting off the bottom. Let's see if he gets it again. Come get it. Nope. And there's some, that's a good one swimming further down the way there. And that's a real good one, 30 feet out. All these seem pretty good. They're all right on this break. Okay guys, so I think that easy early morning bite is pretty much done. I've fished another pass through this area and I've had 4 fish that have nipped it and have not fully got the bait in their mouth. I load up on them and they just don't really get the bait, and that sometimes just starts to happen when these fish get a little bit less aggressive. On these full moon days, as soon as that sun pops out, these fish will get really picky, and a lot of times you have to just pull up on them when they're fresh. Here's a fish right here. See, he just kind of looked up at it and he swerved it. Some of these fish are still kind of looking at it, getting kind of interested, but they're not really fully committing. There's a couple right here. Come on. Come on, come on. Oh my gosh. There's a bunch of them sitting right there. Right in their waypoint. Let's see if they'll actually react. I've missed now 4 or 5 fish in a row that have just nipped at the bait. And I got it. That fish got it though. No, he didn't. Oh my gosh. I thought I had him. He had the bait and nipped it once again. Goodness. He had that bait, I thought, choked. That's happened, that's like the 4th or 5th time that's happened, guys. It's so frustrating right now. I've been throwing a bunch of different baits too, Ned rigs and jigs, swing head, all kinds of stuff to see if maybe these fish will eat something that's more on the bottom, but I can't get them to react to anything other than this hover rig. I think it's just these flat, calm conditions. These fish are not aggressive on anything traditional, but they will follow this hover rig and, you know, slap it, knock it, but they won't just fully commit to it. It's super weird. I want to see if I can pull one of these fish over to take a look at it. And it's not like I'm not trying other baits on these fish. I'm throwing a swing head, a jig, wacky worm. I've thrown a crankbait, a swim bait, a bunch of different stuff. And it's been about 45 minutes since I've caught a fish, though I've had like 5 or 6 bites. So it's hard for me to kind of stop and go to a new area when there's so many fish around, it feels like. But I feel like that's gonna have to be my plan right now. I think it's a combination of that sun coming up, bluebird sky day, that morning bite is over. The fish were feeding up all night with that full moon, so these fish are going to be the least aggressive they're going to be, and I might just have to tie on something like a Ned rig or a super finessey jig and try to figure out how to get these fish to bite. So we're probably going to move on from this area. We've also had people driving over the top of this spot for a little while now because it's right in front of the public boat ramp, and we're probably just gonna either just let these fish rest, maybe come back later in the day, but probably just try to find some brand new fish. But that just goes to show how important that early morning bite is on these full moon days, especially when you have bluebird skies and no wind at the same time. We're able to catch 4 really solid fish that weighed 12 pounds, 12 ounces. And then we lost about a 1.5 pound spotted bass right here by the side of the boat. Also missed probably 10 more fish, all on that Core Tackle 1/8 ounce 3/0 hover rig with the Basstrix Hover Trix. Again, a new collaboration between Core Tackle and Basstrix, only available at coretackle.com. And this little deal is amazing on a regular strolling head and also on this hover rig, as you can see. And I actually caught all of my fish and got all those bites on one bait, so they're very durable as well. You can even use some like Mendit soft plastic glue to glue them back up and get even more fish out of these baits. So really good deal right there. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I'm now going to head out and try to figure out something new and film another video for you guys, and hopefully you'll see that video coming here very soon. So thanks for checking out this one. We'll see y'all next video.